Great. We've got a lot of people interested in learning about oral language. That's very exciting. So I'll go ahead and get started and honor your time and thank you for joining today and learning about oral language and how you can use oral language to enhance your students' experience in preschool. I'm Denise Majin, and I'm the USBE Elementary English Language Arts Specialist and have taken on oral language this year as my focus. So I'm really excited to share this with you. And I do need to give some credit to my colleague, Harmony Langford. So she is the USBE Coach of Coaches. But prior to that role, she was a RISA coach in the Q's region and worked with preschool and has more experience with preschool than I did. So she helped me with the presentation. And so I just need to give her some credit. She was unable to attend today. She's teaching a letter session. And so I'm presenting, but a lot of the content came from Harmony. So I want to thank her for that. So as we get started, I just want to make you aware of where you can access the resources and the presentation. So you can either scan the QR code, you can use the bit.ly link that you can see there, or in the Zoom events for this session in the resources, I also linked the presentation and the resource folder. So the resource folder has a copy of the presentation and some handouts and other things that I'm going to reference as I talk today. So anything that you could hopefully want is going to be there for you. So I'll just give you another minute or so to either use the bit.ly or copy that down, because I know that sometimes if you're on your computer, it's hard to do that at the same time, or to scan the QR code, but also know that it's in the Zoom events for you to access later. Great. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So first, just want to start off with a reminder about the simple view of reading. And that is that we have word recognition and times that with language comprehension, and that's how we get reading comprehension. So if you haven't been familiar with this before, it's something that you learn when you take letters or learn about the science of reading. But it takes word recognition and language comprehension to have a student with reading comprehension. And it's a multiplication equation on purpose, because if one of those areas is missing, then reading comprehension, so if one of them is 0, reading comprehension will be 0. And so we're focusing today on that language comprehension part. And so that you know, if you have a student that struggles with that, then they're really going to not be able to have reading comprehension. So just reminding you of that and why we want to focus on oral language. So strong oral language skills are one of the most important goals of early childhood. We know that birth to 5 is crucial time to develop those oral language skills with your students. So you guys have the great opportunity to have a huge impact on your students and that oral language development that is going to help them as they move on into elementary school and are learning those word decoding skills. They'll be able to have that oral language to help them with that. So just know that this is a super important thing for you and an opportunity that you have to make a difference with your students. So there was a study that was done by Hart and Riesling about how many words children need. So the average 4-year-old has access to about 30 million words. Crazy, isn't it? But children of talkative, college-educated professional parents have 48 million words. And then children who are in a low language, low socioeconomic families have only about 13 million words. So that's not a lack of love. It's a lack of opportunity because of life circumstances. Maybe they watch their iPads when they're driving in the car. Sorry, I have a cold, so I'm going to have to suck on a cough drop or else I'll lose my voice in a minute. We know more and more that families aren't having family dinner, which is a time to have great discussions, and that parents and children are on electronic devices, which is limiting those opportunities for that oral language. by age 3, the spoken vocabularies for children from professional families were so much larger than the children with parents in the poor uneducated families, because those low SES parents spoke less to the children, used language in a different way. Maybe they don't go out on vacations where they can talk and learn about different things. So just to make you aware of that, that it's just that lack of opportunity, and that's where we can help fill in that gap for something we can't control. So there is strong correlations between the amount of talk that a child has heard in their early years, and that impacts in their later years their vocabulary growth, their IQ, their ability to learn to read, and their reading comprehension, as I showed with that simple view of reading. So we know that it is important with that amount of talk that children have heard and have participated in. So I don't know if you've heard of the Matthew effect before, but basically it's that the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. So if you take that in an oral language perspective, if you have this picture and you have a student and you say, look at the kitty on the bench. If a child knows what a kitty is, then they can determine what a bench is if they didn't know what a bench was, because they can see the picture and see the kitty that they know that's on a bench. But if a student doesn't know what a kitty is, then they also not only don't know what kitty is, but they don't know what bench is because they don't know where to look. So we want to build their oral language so that we can have that Matthew effect and have the rich get richer, that the more they learn about words, then the more words that they can learn. Oral language is critical with communication, as I'm sure you know, teaching preschool, that you want children to be able to communicate with others. That's a skill that remains long after preschool and that they'll take into their elementary school years. It helps them to organize their thoughts. If you teach them how to talk, you're teaching them how to think. And that came from Jane Healy. It also helps them to problem solve because they can talk through their problems that they have, and helps them with their social skills if they can communicate and use their words to talk about how they're feeling and with others. And then, as we saw from the simple view of reading and previously, that also that oral language is a foundation. We know now, there's been several studies from Snolling and Hume that oral language is that first skill that we need before we can start to learn to read. So it's a foundational skill that they need in order to build those skills with word recognition and reading comprehension later. So vocabulary is both caught and taught. So what that means is sometimes we might think that vocabulary and oral language is just implicit, it just happens. But that can be part of it, but it also needs to be explicitly taught to students. So we need to think about that as we are working with our students, that we want to use a lot of vocabulary so that it can be caught, but that we also want to explicitly teach that with our students. So one way you can do that is talking with your children. So as I go through these next couple of slides with some different examples, Harmony put together a handout that's in your resources folder that describes a lot of these, gives you more details on a lot of these things that you can do, gives you some examples of some games that you can play with your students, and gives you lots of different ideas. So those are in the resource folder in a handout from Harmony. So thanks, Harmony, for that. So the gift of language can best be developed through interaction with speaking with humans. So those conversations, we want to immerse children in those rich child-centered conversations. And it's very important to make sure that we have conversational turns. So if we say something and then the student says something, then we want to come back to us to add on to that and have them add on to. So what's our snack today? And they say, oh, it's grapes. And you say, do you like grapes? And they say, yes. And how do grapes taste? And they can tell you how it tastes. What color are grapes? Things like that, so that you're having conversational turns back and forth. You want to treat children as if they are conversationalists, even if they aren't quite there yet. If you want to have an intelligent conversation with children, give your own assumptions a rest, put on your listening ears, and hear what they're really saying. Listen for their unique thinking about the world, not just the right answer, and listen with your eyes. Then you want to have them expand what they're saying and repeat things that you say. So if they're not using a complete sentence, you could have them repeat and you say it in a complete sentence and have that repeat for them. Putting yourself on speakerphone. So this is think aloud. So for example, you say, oh no, we're all out of graham crackers. I didn't notice that yesterday. I'm going to have to go to the store and get some more. But I think we'll have goldfish crackers instead. So you're modeling that language. You're doing a think aloud. You're modeling the problem solving problem or process. You identified the problem. You came up with a solution. You made a plan and you took action on that. So when kids can watch and hear you think aloud, they see that process in action and you're modeling the skills that you want them to develop. You're talking about facilitating things for the children's ability to put thoughts into words. So you want them to develop an awareness of others, increase their language development, expose them to new vocabulary, and let them use their imaginations as they create mental pictures about another story. So you can do that through put yourself on speakerphone. That's just doing a lot of think alouds. Labeling and describing objects is going to give them that new vocabulary that they can develop. And being a sportscaster, so just think about watching, if you watch sports like the Utah Jazz and the sportscaster is giving a play-by-play, so you could also do that play-by-play as the teacher. And, oh, look, Johnny is going to get a drink from the drinking fountain, something like that, and talking through what is happening in the classroom so that they can hear that being said. So that's what be a sportscaster is. So there are some things that can destroy conversations. So before I get to this quote, just want to make you aware of what can be discussion destroyers. So asking questions that you already know the answer to, looking for the right answer, because then they feel like if they don't give you the right answer, then they don't feel comfortable sharing. If somebody already said that, if a student gives an answer, but you could instead do that, say, oh, what else could we do if someone gave the same answer? Simple yes and no questions aren't going to build that oral language in that discussion. So just think about those discussion destroyers as you're trying to build those discussions in your classroom. So if interruption doesn't happen, it's very likely that the learning isn't happening. We need to translate interruption as the children's entering the learning process. If we genuinely believe that language development is at the heart of the learning process, then we need to allow time. So just keep that in mind, that you want to have time and opportunities for that talk. So you want to plan time for children to talk. You can do that with snack time conversations. If you're sitting at a small table while you're having snacks with topics that they can relate to, how something tastes, how something smells, what do they see of these snacks that might be red? What can you see that is bigger or smaller from the snacks? You want to provide hands-on experiences that can build vocabulary and can introduce new vocabulary. Plan, do, and review. Give them some words to say. You can do dramatic play. Show and ask rather than show and tell. So if you do like a show and tell, when they bring their item, instead of show and tell, it could be show and ask, and have their peers ask them questions about what they've brought. Tell me something about is something that you can do and have it be seasonal. So tell me something about pumpkins. Tell me something about Thanksgiving. Tell me something about dogs. You can do that with zoo animals. And so, like I said, all of these different things, I just gave you a brief little idea, but there are more ideas and more details in the handout in the folder. Read alouds are another opportunity for you to build that oral language. The language in a well-written book is more diverse and rich than any other source. So you want to make sure when you're doing a read aloud that you also include questions. It makes the biggest impression on children with what you discuss after the read aloud with the teacher. You want to have open-ended questions and allow that wait time. Give them some time. Ask them questions from the story. So if you read The Little Engine That Could, then you could ask, if I could ride a train, I'd visit my grandpa in Idaho. If you could ride the train, where would you go? Just for an example. And questions like, I wonder, or tell me how, or what did you decide? You can provide props for the students to help them in retelling the story and reenacting the story. And you want to make sure that you're teaching, if you have some new vocabulary in the story, that you're teaching that directly. So we're going to talk about that next. So when you are teaching vocabulary, so you want to pre-teach the words if you find that there's some words that are going to be in your read aloud that you think your students might not have an understanding. You want to teach that before you do the read aloud. Say it, explain it, act, or ask it. So that was something that Harmony would suggested to do. Provide hands-on experiences that can introduce the new vocabulary, if by chance you can do that with some items or pictures that can help them to understand what that new vocabulary is. And throw a vocabulary curveball. So that is where you can put in some vocabulary that might enhance their vocabulary as you're in your regular class. So all of the canine owners can line up first. All of the feline owners can sit on the rug first, things like that, to put in those vocabulary words for them to build their vocabulary in your classroom. So some tips this I took from Charles Hume on teaching a new word. So keep it real, use a real example, encourage students to say the word aloud, have them explain what the word means, provide opportunities to use and hear the word in real examples and real activities, and then make sure and review the word. So use real examples, have them repeat the word, say the word, you explain what the word means, and then give them lots of opportunities to say it, explain it, ask or act, just like Harmony had did, and then review that word. The next day, go back to the word that you learned the day before to see if they can remember that word. So phonemic awareness, this is another part that you might have learned with letters or the science of reading. Just want to make you aware, phonemic awareness is not phonics. So in the next slide, I'm going to show you the reading brain. So we're going to remember that. But phonemic awareness starts with listening, and it has, it's playing with sounds. So you can do that a lot, have a lot of opportunities for that in preschool with chants and nursery rhymes and alliteration. And you can do some segmenting with syllables and phonemes. That is also going to help your students with that, making sure that they have an opportunity to not only hear, but to produce those sounds. But start with listening. And then just to remind you about the reading brain. So we have the, if you can remember, when a student is going to be reading and they see a word, first it goes into the back, the occipital lobe, because they're recognizing that print. But then it connects up to the frontal lobe where they have their speech sounds for input and output. And then what we want to have is have it connect here in the middle of their brain where they are doing that orthographic mapping and they're connecting that letter that they saw with the sound that they know, and they can put that together and have the letter sound correspondence. So that's we wanted to make sure that you understand. So the phonemic awareness is the sounds, phonics is that print, and then when we have that put together and they're making that letter sound together and doing orthographic mapping is what we want them to get to them for them to do. Another opportunity that you have to develop oral language is by using music. So it's a powerful tool for increasing your children's discrimination, providing enunciation, for building vocabulary and phonological memory. So just so you are aware, children participate more when teachers lead the singing, and that singing isn't performing. It's not your quality of your voice that matters. It's the connection that you're making with your students. Kids don't judge your voices. Well, right now I have no voice, but I also, a long time ago was a music teacher. I don't have a singing voice, but could still do singing with my students. They focus on the eye contact, on your attention, the interaction from you. So don't let the professionals take your voice away. So what that means is if you're using pre-recorded music, that isn't the same substitute as singing for yourself. Using YouTube recording, you can use YouTube to learn the music, but then sing it yourself rather than just always playing a recording of a song. More important than the songs that you teach are the songs that include everyone. Don't sing at them, sing with them. Kids learn that music doesn't, then they can learn that music doesn't belong just to a CD or to YouTube. It can belong to them, and that people can make music too. So just a note on that, as you can use music with a variety of pitches and rhythms and rhymes to increase that stimulation for your students. So I just want to make you aware of some resources that are in that resource folder. Here is the link again, the bit.ly link and the QR code. With the cute graphics that's not colored, that's black and white, that's the handout that gives you a lot of examples of what I've talked about today. Then also there is, Lena is a great resource, and they have some different talking starters. So I put some of those in there that can help you to sentence starters to start those conversations. And then if you have a student that you're concerned about and you want to see how they're doing, there is a free informal oral language survey that's from Cox Campus that's in the folder that you could use. And you don't even need to use it for, you could use that for all of your students just to see how they're doing on their oral language development. So once again, all of those are in the resource folder that has the bit.ly here or the QR code for you to access that. And I have a video I'm going to show that talks about a school that is in Montana that's been focusing on oral language, and just wanted to share that with you to reinforce the importance of oral language development.
Are you guys here for the halftime show?
Oh, no. We're here to help people customize and save with Liberty Mutual.
So
I think it's something that often is overlooked, but is absolutely critical to not only later literacy development as far as reading, but also written expression skills. Language is an essential part of that. And then also social emotional learning, just giving kids stronger language skills to better express themselves and get their own needs met.
I'm making a snowman.
You're making a snowman. What are you making, Nikita?
A flat pancake.
A flat pancake. How about you, Emmy?
I'm making a flat pancake.
Nice. And how about you?
Making like yours.
So as we see kids progress, especially using these early language skills to identify early interventions. We're getting in there when the gap isn't so big. We're talking 3, 4, 5-year-olds. So the gap isn't huge yet compared to their same age peers. So we're able to provide early intervention, close that gap, and then have less need for intensive interventions later on down the road.
As a nation, we just haven't had an assessment that allowed us to accurately screen for those skills, and subsequently we didn't know how to intervene and support and instruct those skills. What this assessment, intervention, and curriculum allows us to do is to take a screening of all of our students and be able to interpret that data quickly and be able to intervene quickly.
Ultimately, Winans chose to work with this oral language program because it has an evidence-based, and it's shown to be effective for children of various socioeconomic levels. It's shown to be effective for children who speak other languages. It's just good language instruction, and all children deserve to have good language instruction.
Cinderella couldn't go, but what happened? They waved the wand, yeah. Yeah, and then what happened?
We have seen immense success with this. Specifically, our students are now outperforming on language measures, and it's directly impacting their ability to write, their engagement in math instruction. We're seeing a reduction in kids who have received the curriculum and intervention with respect to social emotional dysregulation. We're also seeing an increase in their writing skills, their narrative skills, and just generally their engagement in classwork.
The most powerful impact is hearing educators, parents, and outside observers say how they've noticed children who are typically quiet children start to talk.
Yep. One day, Dad takes them to the park after school, and they hear a loud why, and they run back to Dad.
It's not just the few children who like to talk a lot. All children are starting to really enjoy talking a lot. There will be a reduction in the need for services. I'm certain of it because we're already seeing it. What's really profound if you truly implement a multi-tiered system of support for children is that you start to teach children what they need. And when we reach them where they're at and we develop their skills in both language and early literacy, we start to see that the risk levels of early literacy skill deficit or difficulties, it's already decreasing. And we truly are starting to find those who have developmental language differences because their language isn't developing the same as their peers. It's the early language skills that predict those academic outcomes, and that's not just reading, it's math in all academic domains. And my favorite impact is on social emotional well-being, and being in language interventions appears to have a really positive effect for teaching children about being in community and being with each other and having those opportunities to share and communicate with peers and adults.
She needed helmet, she needed she needed a boots, but she didn't need. Yeah, she didn't need pants.
The one thing I just want to emphasize is how important early language screening and intervention is. I think it often gets overlooked when we're talking about literacy, and the more that we have as a district delved into looking at language and the language component of literacy, we realized how much we were missing. And so for me, that was a big eye-opener, and I just think it's really important that districts, especially with younger learners, start looking at language immediately, because there are so many early gaps you can close that will support students continuing through their education.
Monday.com, the opposite of any work platform we tried in the past.
Sorry about that. So they were talking about a specific early literacy or oral language program that they're using. You don't need to use an oral language program. You can just start implementing some of the different ideas that I've shared today and increase those conversational turns with your students and giving them lots of opportunities to share, and you get modeling and doing think alouds with your students to hopefully see the same amount of growth as what they saw with their program. So we are done a little early today. I probably talked a little fast because I was worried about losing my voice. I did notice one comment in the chat about wanting to know more about singing with your voice rather than using a recording. Like this came from Harmony, and she did have a reference, Lyndon Hardgrove, but I don't have the specific research in front of me. So I will put my email in the chat. If you want to email me, I will get that research from Harmony and share it with you. But we do have some time for some questions. And if you could take a minute and scan this QR code and complete this brief survey. My name's Denise Majan, but you can just put Denise. And I would love to hear if this was helpful for you. And then we'll give you a minute to do that. Then I'll stop sharing my screen and can answer some questions if you have any in the chat, and I'll put my email in that as well. So if you'll grab that QR code picture, complete that quick survey. I'm going to stop sharing my screen in just a second. Then that makes that easier for me to answer any questions that you have in the chat. So here is my email. And so Stephanie, if you'll send me an email, then I can respond to you with that research when I get that from Harmony. And please make sure that you check out that resources folder if this is something that you're interested in. There's a lot of things in there for you to use. All right, someone wants me to go back to the plan, do, review. Let me get to that. So plan, do, review would be when you are, that's giving you opportunities to talk. So you would be doing a think aloud with your students, talk about how you're planning to do something, then you're going to do that something, and then you're going to review what you just did. So as I'm thinking about that we're going to be reading the story, and now we're going to read the story, and then we're done. We just finished reading the story. That's very simplified, but making sure that you're doing that aloud with your students, but then also that you've planned for when you're going to have those conversational turns, that you do that, and then you review that. So if we don't have any more questions, I'll stay on for a little bit if you have some more questions, but it's lunchtime, so it's not a bad thing to be done early so that you can have a little extra time for your lunch. Make sure to check out those resources. There's my email if you need anything. The video is in the presentation. So, and the presentation is in the folder. So if you want that video, it is in the presentation in the folder. Oh, and sorry, I put my email in, but that only went to the panelists. So Jared put that in for you. Hopefully you've got that. So I'll go back and share my screen back to the resources folder, but it also is in the Zoom events under my session. But I will go back and share that bit.ly link for you. So here you go. There's the QR code or bit.ly link. Oh, and Jared put that. Jared, you're so awesome. Jared also put it in the. All right. So if no more questions, you're feel free to leave early. Oh, maybe we've got one more in the Q&A. Oh, just thank you. Thank you, everybody. I'm excited that we had that many of you that were interested in oral language. Like I said, birth to 5 is the key time to be developing this with your students. So thank you for your interest, and hopefully you can make some little tweaks to increase the opportunities for oral language development with your students. I'll stay on for just a couple more minutes in case there's any more questions. Thank you again for your time today. I'll stay here until 11:40 and then I'll close the webinar and you can just have a few extra minutes to enjoy your lunch.